It's time for RealAg Radio on Rural Radio Channel 147 on Sirius XM. RealAg Radio and RealAgriculture.com is your home for insight and analysis of the issues that are impacting your farm business. Let's get real and get connected with RealAg Radio. Welcome to RealAg Radio here on Rural Radio 147, Sirius XM. Shaun, Haney, your host here on this Friday edition of the show. Hey, thanks so much, everybody, for making RealAg Radio and Rural Radio 147, of course, a big part of your workday. Also, a big shout out to everybody listening out there on the RealAg Radio podcast. Well, it's Friday, and in case you didn't notice, Lindsay's off this week, and so we've been managing to try to get all the stuff done. We can't wait for her to get back on Monday, let me tell you. But I know she's had a great week on the farm there. Absolutely. Okay, so today's panel is going to be Stuart Person of MNP. He is the SVP there for agriculture. Stuart's going to be joined by Meagan Murdoch of Hill in Knowlton. She is out of Toronto. Great guest, lots of communications and political experience. And of course, Kelvin Heppner from Altona, Manitoba from RealAgriculture will be here as well. We got a lot to chat about. We've got major foreign investment leaving Canada in Q1. We got Bank of Canada update next week. We've got some new data on farm profitability from Statistics Canada. We're going to talk about some survey data that we have at Real Agri Studies as it applies to land rents and land rental agreements and some of the significant price increases that are out there that you told us about in the April survey. All that and a whole lot more. I got two great audio pieces to play for you today too. Things that happened in Ottawa, fantastic, and one of them a bit of a head scratcher, but we'll get to that in a second. If you have any feedback on today's show, we'd love to hear from you. You can send me an email, shaney@realagriculture.com. You can also find Real Agriculture across all the different social media platforms. You're also welcome to call the Real Ag feedback line. That number is 855-776-6147. Do not forget to tune in to The Agronomists on Monday night. It's going to be a great show. Real Ag in prime time. Lindsay Smith is your host. You can get CCA CU credits for attending the show. Highly encourage you to check it out. And she does a great job. There's viewers from across Canada and the United States watching on YouTube or at realagriculture.com/live. Let's take a break. And when we come back, we got Real Ag Issues panel all day, all the time here today. Looking forward to it. We'll get to it right after this.
Choose Viatude fungicide and unleash best-in-class sclerotinia protection in canola and premium protection against white mold in soybeans. Viatude contains a powerful premix of Onmira Active and prothioconazole. This unique combo delivers high-performance disease control, crop safety, mix compatibility, resistance management, and advanced mobility for excellent coverage and superior plant protection. Choose Viatude fungicide for stronger, more vigorous crops.
I get to spend every day talking to farmers in the ag industry through RealAgriculture.com and Real Ag Radio. But nothing is more fun than speaking to an audience live and in person. If you're planning an ag event, book a Real Agriculture speaker to make it a successful and memorable experience. Email shaney@realagriculture.com and you can book myself or any other Real Ag personality to speak at your event. Bring your audience all the fun, insight, and energy of Real Agriculture.
Peter Johnson at WheatPete, RealAgriculture.com, and what an opportunity! Oh my gosh!
You think you can't grow better wheat? You are absolutely wrong. We're going to show you how to strive for those record wheat yields that they get in the UK and in New Zealand. You can grow 150 bushel wheat. I'll show you how.
Catch WheatPete's Word every Wednesday on RealAgriculture.com or download the podcast on iTunes or Spotify. Welcome back to Real Ag Radio. It's now time for the Real Ag Issues panel. Lindsay Smith is away, so we will play. We got a great group here together this afternoon. Looking forward to it. Up first, we got Meagan Murdoch with Hill and Knowlton out of Toronto, Ontario. Hey, Meagan, how are you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing good. How's the weather this week in Toronto?
The weather is beautiful at the moment. We have had some rain this week, though, but I will say it is sunny at the moment. Weekend's looking a little hit or miss, but I think it'll be just fine as we
Yeah.
get into June.
Yep. Okay. Well, hopefully the Rogers Center will be open this weekend with those Blue Jays City Connect jerseys. That I was on Canada Talks yesterday with Jeff Samet, and we had both speculated that the jerseys would look terrible because a lot of the City Connect jerseys look terrible, besides a few teams. I think the Jays look awesome.
Yeah, I hear the beer tastes just as good in them. So,
And just
what
as
does it really
expensive.
matter?
Just as expensive. Also joining us from Edmonton, Alberta. I'm sure we're going to talk about the Oilers. It is Stuart Person of MNP. Hey, Stuart, how's it going?
Good. How are you, Shaun?
Good. This has been a wild and wacky series so far between the Oilers and the Stars. I've been following it very, very closely, trying to be as objective as possible. But what wild swings! A team dominates, and then all of a sudden the other team easily comes back and maybe takes the lead, like what happened in Game 4. It's bizarre.
It is. Yeah, it's been exciting. I think we'll see who wants it more in the next 3 games, but I like what we're seeing out of the Oilers lately, so I have high hopes.
You're confident still?
Yes.
Yeah. Those ticket prices in Edmonton, those are that you think farmland's expensive? Just try to buy a bottom bowl ticket for the Oilers game. That'll show you what expensive looks like, Stuart.
Yeah, you might have to sell a few cows before you can go to a game.
Yeah, exactly. What's more expensive, bread heifer or a seat in the lower bowl in round 3? Okay. Yeah. Also joining us is Kelvin Heppner, coming out of Altona, Manitoba, of course, with RealAgriculture. Hey, Kelvin, how are you doing?
Doing well here, Shaun, and we didn't even try to not make this a sports show today.
I know. Lindsay's gone. I'm just going to do whatever I want.
Exactly. We've been watching hockey here too, and actually our daughters were big fans of the PWHL, and Minnesota won the inaugural Walter Cup in the PWHL this week. So that was our exciting hockey moment the other night.
Are we going to have team names next year in the league?
Well, I don't know. The league's had a pretty successful first season. I think they will wait until they need to up the marketing. Maybe wait till second, third, fourth season before they come out with names and jerseys and everything else that will the sales that will bring.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Hey, Manitoba has been getting all this good part of the moisture that we've been seeing in Western Canada. Now Manitoba is maybe a little bit different than parts of Saskatchewan and Alberta when it comes to sort of the dry biasing conditions. Manitoba's in a little bit better situation relative to the past couple of years. Have we hit a point, Kelvin? Like I saw a moisture map from this week, and we're what 100%? Like we're normal across the board or more. Are we reaching a point where like we're almost getting too much at this stage, or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, there are pockets of Manitoba where the rain needs to stop so that seeding can continue. But in general, we're in better shape. We were quite dry heading into spring. So yeah, the entire province, you look at that moisture map from Manitoba Agriculture, in the entire province basically has had over 150% of normal moisture through the first 3-4 weeks of the growing season here. It looks really wet, but that picture doesn't tell the whole story because of how dry it was beforehand. So we've really welcomed this moisture, but at this point, yeah, it could slow down. There's water sitting in the field in many parts of the province.
Yeah, Stuart, what are you hearing from clients?
Well, it's a mixed bag across the prairies, but I think for the most part, most of them are welcoming the moisture. I know there's some farmers in and around the Camrose area that would like it to go away for at least a few weeks. I know there's been a lot of stuck seeders out that way, but overall, I think most farmers have been able to power through it and get the crop in. I would say seeding conditions haven't been as ideal as they would like. They'd like a little drier on the seeding side, but take the moisture when we can get it because rain makes grain. So.
Yeah, it does indeed. We need some heat, and even in central and eastern Canada. Like the weather has been nice at times, but talking to farmers yesterday in the Farmer Rapid Fire, we could use some more heat here right now. I think that's kind of the bias across the country where we're the last day of May today.
Yeah.
And we are still seeing temperatures that feel kind of like end of Marchish. Is that fair? Middle of April?
It's cool. It's way cooler than it should be. So I should mention as well that the livestock producers are very happy with the rain. I
Indeed.
think the first cut of hay is going to be a wonderful cut. So.
I saw a tweet this morning. Well, I should say I saw an X or a post. I don't know what the heck we even call it anymore. But Jocelyn Wasco from East End, Saskatchewan. I'm not sure that East End has been that green at the end of May in quite some time. Beautiful picture off her back step. So we had Tim Alexkin, who I've nicknamed now Positive Tim. He was on the Farmer Rapid Fire yesterday, and he talked about how great the conditions are. But in some of these parts, we've got a lot of recharge to go. We're not out of the woods, and yes, the drought is not over. You can save your text messages and emails, but let's take it as a positive that we are seeing moisture out of the sky. Hey, I want to play some audio for you. Kelvin and I, because we have nothing better to do, listen to the Standing Ag Committee meeting this week. A 2-hour affair. It was quite interesting, actually. I actually, not joking aside, really did enjoy it. There was a point. Well, Kelvin, you set the stage here, and then I'll play the audio. What exactly are we going to hear here from Minister MacAulay being asked a question from Warren Steinley?
Yeah, Minister MacAulay was making an appearance before the Ag Committee. This is for main estimates. This is kind of the main annual appearance by the ministers. They sometimes show up for other issues, but this is kind of the main point where the committee members all get to ask him questions. So he faced a ton of different questions from Conservative, NDP, his fellow Liberal colleagues, as well as Bloc, people asking him questions. And the Conservatives, one of the issues that they questioned him on was the capital gains changes that were announced in the federal budget back in April, which the federal government is looking to increase the amount of tax revenue it collects on capital gains. We've talked about this on our Friday Issues panel several times over the last couple of months here. And Warren Steinley, the MP from Saskatchewan, Conservative, was asking Minister MacAulay whether there had been consultations specifically with the agriculture sector about these capital gains changes before the budget was tabled back in April.
Minister, did your department have any consultations with agriculture sector stakeholders before this was put into budget 2024? Is it a yes or a no?
Not very keen on this yes or no stuff, but the thing is, did I know what was going in the budget before it went in the budget? No.
What? You didn't know? You yourself, Minister, did not know this was going to be in budget.
I do not write the budget.
Okay, thank you very much. That's interesting.
Okay, so there it is. So Meagan, you're a comms expert. What do you make of that?
Yeah, and previously was supporting the former government's agriculture minister, and then worked for a time at finance as well. So have seen the budget process up close. And I mean, the way he answered it, we can discuss further, but not overly surprising that he wouldn't know every detail within the budget. Ministers put forward their own asks for their own portfolio. They'll know in advance whether they are going to get them or not, but they wouldn't probably know everything else. So not terribly surprising that he didn't know about the capital gains changes, though you would imagine that would be a discussion at the cabinet table at some point.
Yeah.
But the way he answered it is quite interesting to me, and that, a minister wouldn't at least try to appear to have been informed, but that he was quite honest in that he had not known about that in advance. I don't know what he was trying to get at or get around.
To me, his body language changed. I love I'm not sure what I think about this yes or no stuff. That was pretty comical. But he leaned back, and then he didn't answer other questions like that. This one seemed different to me. He didn't thank for the great question like he did most people as they were peppering him with a wide range of topics, as Kelvin had said. Stuart, I guess what's the signal here? If we're not surprised that he didn't know what was in the budget, should this be a concern for agriculture that maybe there wasn't some sort of a consult and a deeper look into what would the actual impacts be on the agriculture community, or is this just par for the course?
Yeah, I mean, I'll go back to what I said on when we had our panel in Ottawa back at the CFA this winter. You know, it's just disappointing that the agriculture file is not viewed with more importance in this government, and I, you know, I think it's not maybe just necessarily unique to this government either. I feel like agriculture is not getting the respect it deserves on the federal level, and you know, it's disappointing because it's such an important industry. And like we talked about in Ottawa when we were there, Shaun, like when the pandemic hit, agriculture was priority number one. People were worried about food, right? And now that's over. We're kind of back to the shadows again. And so disappointing that Minister MacAulay wouldn't have known. Would have been nice to have an opportunity to look at the impact on our industry for a change that significant. But it is what it is, I guess.
Kelvin, is there any chance the Liberals don't move forward with these capital gains changes? They've faced a lot of pushback. Doctors, independent business people. It's a long list. There's a lot of letters going to Ottawa on this, but so far, Chrystia Freeland, the finance minister, has held very firm. Is this going to happen?
I think it will happen, yeah. I think that they are still intending to move ahead with it. We did see 10 national farm and commodity groups this week as well. The Canadian Federation of Agriculture, Grain Growers, Cattle Association, a number of national groups write a joint letter. And in it, they weren't just critical of the changes. They also made a list of suggested or proposed ways that this could be improved around the margins so that it's not as impactful and, as like Stuart said, costly on farms, especially young farmers who are looking to expand and acquire farm assets that have increased in value over under the previous ownership. That's something I think we could potentially see, or I certainly have no insider information on this, but I do wonder whether there won't be some tweaks to what was announced in the budget. There wasn't a whole lot of detail in the budget on it either. So I wonder whether we could see some changes in definitions or in adding certain, whether holding companies get included in how they get categorized and things like that could potentially happen on the margins. We have also seen that CRA can move ahead with these changes without actual legislation having to be passed through the House of Commons, which I think that could be an issue too, where people will complain if a major change of this significance happens without going through a legislative process. That's not something that the electorate will be very happy with either. So, yeah, I expect we will see legislation, but I'm not sure this June 25th deadline is. That's basically just 3 weeks away now in terms of actually having these changes take effect. One of the recommendations from the farm groups was to push it back until January 1st or even later.
Stuart, you got a flood of clients. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Meagan.
I was just going to say they did do a carve out for tech, like different sectors. So it's not like they haven't, made changes around the margins that couldn't also be applied to ag.
Stuart, you got a bunch of clients coming to you saying, I want to do asset freezes?
Yeah, I mean, we're quite busy right now trying to figure out what we can do. I mean, from the government's point of view, I mean, they're also, when you do make a change like this, it triggers a bunch of gains to be, or causes a bunch of gains to be triggered now before the June 25th date, right? So they will see a windfall from this, and that a bunch of tax will get paid because people will want to take advantage of the lower rates. One of the challenging things for us, though, as advisors is, and our clients are really getting tired of this, is we're going out saying, hey, they proposed this change. Well, we've had this before with other changes that have been proposed, and sometimes they don't actually go through. And so, the clients are kind of like, well, are they really going to do it? And we're like, well, I don't know, but we have to proceed under the assumption they are, right? I mean, and so it's difficult to be an advisor right now because you're not sure. And I don't think the legislation is even tabled yet, right?
No, not. Hey, we got to take a break.
This is an environment just so quickly overall, Shaun, where we're trying to attract capital and struggling to drive investment in the Canadian economy. And it's just, when there's this uncertainty, like Stuart talks about, it hurts that.
Yeah, we saw a significant amount of foreign investment leave Canada in Q1 of this year. Very significant. Okay, we're going to take a break. We've got more of the Real Ag Issues panel coming up. We got Meagan Murdoch of Hill & Knowlton, Stuart Person of MNP, and of course, Kelvin Heppner and myself from Real Agriculture. We'll be right back right after this.
Canola is more than just a pretty face in the prairie landscape. It's a big business, both here and around the world, that requires you to be informed and up to date on everything it takes to grow a successful crop. The Canola School on RealAgriculture.com has an expert library of video resources covering markets, agronomy, and more to help you grow a healthy and profitable canola crop. Visit canolaschool.com today. Brought to you by BASF Canada and Invigor Hybrid Canola. If you're involved in the agriculture industry, it's important to stay informed on all the latest issues affecting your business. At RealAgriculture.com, we offer fast, reliable news, information, and insights to help you keep on top of all of the latest in Canadian agriculture. Visit RealAgriculture.com and sign up for our free daily newsletter covering everything from news, agronomy, animal agriculture, and much more. Visit RealAgriculture.com/subscribe today. It's summertime, and you've got a lot of important decisions to make when it comes to your corn crop. Let the Corn School on RealAgriculture.com help guide you through those big decisions with input from leading experts in the field. If it's spray timing, disease identification, or any other field issue, the Corn School's got you covered. The Corn School on RealAgriculture.com, brought to you by BASF and Pride Seeds.
And welcome back to RealAg Radio here on this Friday. RealAg Issues panel, Stuart Person of MMP, Meagan Murdoch of Hill and Knowlton, and myself, Shaun, Haney, and Kelvin Heppner of RealAgriculture. I was mentioning the exodus of foreign investment out of Canada in Q1. That number, according to Stats Canada, was $6.2 billion Canadian. It is the first such divestment, according to the Wall Street Journal, in 14 years. So pretty significant. Meagan, what do you make of that? And in a time where there's a lot of talk about lack of productivity in Canada, lack of ability to get foreign investment, this number leaving is not a positive sign.
Yeah, no, it certainly adds to a long list of challenges that Canada is facing. And I it does go back to that foreign investment coming in. How much is coming in versus how much is going out? You're seeing even our own pension plans, the Maple 8, experts say they have about 20% invested in Canada, and the government in the recent months have kind of been mulling whether to push pensions to invest more here in Canada. That's a big debate as to whether that's good investment policy or not and how to do it. But I think the question really needs to be asked, what red tape, what policy, what tax changes need to be made to attract that investment, to keep the investment here in Canada versus, forcing our pension funds to keep their money here.
Yeah, but at the same time, I don't know. Like I heard Finance Minister Freeland talk about how foreign investors are looking at Canada because of things like our carbon tax. That seemed like a bit of a stretch, Kelvin. I don't know a lot of, unless you're like a big conglomerate, maybe looking to, look at that price on pollution as a way to show your green interests. I don't know. That doesn't add up to me.
That is the bet that this Liberal government has been making, though, for the last 9 years, that's something that former Environment Minister Catherine McKenna used to always talk about too, was Canada was a land of opportunity because of the emphasis the government was putting on green priorities. And I think the last number of years as cost of living and inflation has become a higher priority in terms of the public and electorate, what people are thinking about. And we've also seen the corporate world pull back a little bit on its commitments when it comes to environmental and ESG type stuff as well. So that, I think, has not been in Canada's favor. And in this government had bet on companies really prioritizing ESG. And so now, yeah, we have a carbon price and we have all these different programs in place, but whether the potential has actually been filled, some might argue it could still be down the road. And there is potential if you look at European policy, and if we want to export to Europe, if we want to maintain, not face carbon border adjustments and those types of things down the road. This is something that we talked about on the Ag Policy Connection podcast last week with Steve Verhoeven, the sustainability and green stuff in trade. There is potential for a disadvantage if we remove into certain markets where there is a carbon price if we remove a carbon price here in Canada. But yeah, every country is going on its own right now, and we're moving into this protectionist world where this is all there's not a unified joint approach that Canada can benefit right now.
But even if we have the price on carbon, that doesn't mean we're still not going to have a carbon border adjustment applied to us.
If it meets a certain level, then we won't. And agricultural goods, most people are saying agriculture will be excluded, other than on the fertilizer side of things. The question, though, is whether Poilievre is talking about axing the carbon tax, but he's clearly talking about the consumer-facing carbon tax. What about the industrial that fertilizer manufacturers face? That's where the Conservatives have been more vague, and that's where fertilizer exporters would face a carbon border adjustment into Europe, it looks like, if that one was removed, but we're not sure that that's what the Conservatives would be doing.
Yeah, and I've been hearing rumblings that industrial carbon tax would be staying. And for those very reasons, those members are potentially okay with paying it because they don't want to face the carbon border adjustment. Stuart, with all this happening at the same time, I've been talking about how Canadian farmers, according to our April Canadian Farmer Sentiment Index, negative about their current farm financial performance relative to 12 months ago. They're concerned about their future farm financial performance relative to 12 months out, both around those mid 80s at a 200, below the 100 neutral line. We've also seen for 2023, StatsCan came out with some data. Realized Canadian farm income is up. Net income is down in 23. What do you make of some of the numbers that were released?
Yeah, I mean, so as an accountant, I take some of those numbers with a bit of a grain of salt on the StatsCan report. You have to remember what the source of their data is, and that's going to be mostly income tax returns, which in the farming world, most of it gets filed on the cash basis. So there's going to be a lag there in terms of when we really see the pressure on farm income. So even though they did say they came down, I think they came down a lot more in 2023 than what they're showing on an accrual basis. And so those of us in the accounting world, we would always match our crops grown or our livestock raised in the current year with the expenses we incurred to grow that crop or raise that livestock. And so what we're seeing, I guess, on our side is that the 2022, 2021 were pretty good years, some really high commodity prices, especially in the grain or in the cropping sector. Livestock might have had some more struggles in some of those years. What we're seeing in 2023's results as we're going through them now is they're definitely things have tightened up significantly. Cost of production has significantly risen over that time period. Number of factors in that, just general inflation pressures. We were dealing with a lot of farmers locking in high fertilizer prices going into that 23 year, and then didn't lock in their grain on the other side. So then they got the downswing in the grain. So, and going forward, I a lot of farms would have locked in higher rents, let's say, and they've upgraded some machinery through this phase of prosperity. So we just see cost of production overall up, and grain prices they're not nowhere near where they were a couple years ago. I wouldn't say they're terrible at this point, but we're looking at much tighter margins going into 2024. We're seeing some optimism in the wheat market right now, so that's good for everybody who grows wheat. But canola still, has a ways to go, I think, to get what we would consider expected or reasonable profit out of growing canola. So, I think the general mood is there. I wouldn't say that they're pessimistic at this stage, but there's some concern there about grain prices need to go higher. The livestock sector, on the other hand, has had some better days as of late, so I think they're a little more optimistic than the cropping sector. But
they are.
Yeah, things are tighter.
Yeah, outlook on livestock margins was a 173 at a 200. I'm not sure how you get higher.
Yeah,
livestock producers feeling very good about their financial future.
And there was a report that came out a week or two ago about tractors in the United States, and they're expecting to be, sales are way down, and they're expecting to be way too many tractors on the market going into the next year. So, that's an indicator too where the confidence is down, right? People aren't buying machinery.
Hey, Meagan, we got a Bank of Canada meeting next week. What are you watching for? Do you think we're going to have a rate cut?
I think we will. All signs point to a small rate cut, a very small rate cut. Certainly, we'll be watching to see what impact that might have on, labor, as well as housing prices. I do worry that, and certainly the governor has said that, can't go too far or too fast when doing this. Like, you have to send the right signals to the market. Even a small rate cut, though, could reignite prices in the housing market and put more pressure on, inflation. They've been quite successful moving it, from 8.1% down to 2.8, I think we're at now. So they're in a good space, but they have to be really careful with how fast and how far they go. But I do think all signs are pointing towards a small, maybe 0.25 type cut next week.
And the Federal Reserve's looking more and more like they're waiting till September.
Yeah.
So that's going to create some currency arbitrage there for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, we got to take a break. We've got more coming up here on the Real Ag Issues panel. Stuart Person of MP, Meagan Murdoch of Hill and Knowlton, and Kelvin Heppner and myself, Shaun Haney from Real Agriculture. We'll be right back right after this.
If you only listen to Real Ag Radio, you only get half the picture. For greater insight into the issues that affect farming, tune in to RealAgriculture.com. Crops, livestock, machinery, farm management, and the markets, even food and travel. Real Agriculture Online digs deeper into the topics that affect the way you work and live. So get connected today. Read, watch, and listen to the people who know at RealAgriculture.com.
Infuse some energy into your next corporate event, customer meeting, or conference with RealAg Radio, Canada's national agriculture radio show. Create a unique experience at your next event with host Shaun Haney, broadcasting RealAg Radio live on Sirius XM, featuring exciting guests, captivating interviews, and the latest news from the agriculture community. Contact advertising at realagriculture.com or call 587-787-1795 to book your on location with RealAg Radio today.
Welcome back to Real Ag Radio, Real Ag Issues panel. You deal with many uncertainties on your farm, indeed. Managing risk should not be one of them. A substantial amount of producers in 2024 view this year more riskier than last year. MMP's Ag team specializes in risk management. Visit mmp.ca to learn how you can stay ahead of the game and plan for the unknown. I have another piece of audio, which really has nothing to do with agriculture. But we know this, there will be a point in time during the summer months where farmers are going to pack the family into the maybe the motorhome or the truck, and they're going to go on one of those family holidays that all of us were on as kids, where we drive like crazy to see the Grand Canyon, and hey kids, there's the Grand Canyon, and then drive all the way home. And it's that kind of holiday because we got to get back to spraying seasons on. So this week, Liberal Health Minister Mark Holland made some comments about the Conservatives' lack of environmental policy. And he talked about family vacations. And this, I'm very interested what the panel thinks about this, because this feels like one of those moments in question period where things kind of go off the rails. And I wonder if there's some regret on Holland's part for what he said. Here's the audio.
The Honourable Minister of Health. Mr. Speaker, good news, kids. You can take a summer fun time vacation where you're locked in a car for 10 consecutive days, nonstop with no bathroom breaks. And the Conservatives have a plan for you to have that summertime fun. And the cost? Give up the future of the planet, right? Don't worry, kids, about climate change. Don't worry about taking action on the planet. Enjoy your 10 hours in the car and let the planet burn.
Okay, that was Health Minister Mark Holland. It sounded like there was a kidnapping along with the family. I don't know where he was going with that. Meagan, this is why? What are we? Is it? Do you think there's regret here?
It was a bit much. It's like too much coffee that day or something. Like it just took it to a whole new level. It didn't come out very ministerial in my view, but. I think he's trying to make the point that we need to be thoughtful about how we're acting now for the future, but I feel like there was probably a couple different ways he could have gone about it before that rant.
Not sure where it lands. Like, who is this? Like, oh yeah, go. Like, who is this resonating with? Aren't we supposed to be trying to encourage families to spend time together? And one of the ways that you do that, creating memories and experiences and the learning, is to do that family vacation. Whether you travel an hour or 10 hours, like, don't we want people to explore Canada and learn more about the country? Kelvin, what do you think? You like family holidays. You must feel pretty guilty listening to that clip.
Well, I can actually empathize a little bit with what happened there as somebody who also sometimes starts with an idea of what I want to say and then it turns into a word salad and comes out completely wrong. I think that's what happened to him there, and he got a little bit too passionate and it didn't actually end up saying what he wanted to say, and it actually probably said the opposite. And yeah, it's actually, there's been a few examples of this from the Liberals lately in the House of Commons. Last week, we saw the Finance Minister, Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland, go after Pierre Poilievre, the leader of the Conservatives, accusing him of wearing more makeup than she was wearing, which I don't think was what she wanted. I think she was trying to imply something about, again, a case where she was trying to imply something about him probably being fake or artificial or not what he appeared to be in terms of a position that they were taking. But to say that, to me, it just shows that they are feeling pretty flustered right now and that they're not well organized in their thoughts and their messaging. But yeah, this does actually tie in with our poll this week, Shaun, on RealAg. We've launched a new poll this morning, and it's how will you celebrate completing planting and seeding? And one of the options is a trip to get away. So if you head over to RealAgriculture.com, you can vote on how you will celebrate completing the planting and seeding season.
Apparently letting the planet burn should have been one of the choices there post-seeding.
Wow.
I guess it's probably getting a bit of silly season in Parliament, right?
Yeah.
They're
all ready to go back to their
about 3 or 4 weeks out from Parliament rising, and they're getting a bit tired. Maybe they need a bit of a summer holiday themselves.
Parade season is upon us. Yes, shaking hands, kissing babies. I encourage everybody to go and find the clip. It is the best part. And Kelvin and I were talking about this as he finishes. Seamus O'Regan has a look on his face of like, oh, what is going on? Like I would love to get inside his head and wonder what he was thinking. Okay, so MPs in the House of Commons Agriculture Committee have published a list of recommendations for the federal government to tackle the issue of food price volatility after studying the topic for over the past 6 months. Stuart, there's a lot of things brought up here that are not new. Temporary foreign workers, border inspection, trying to maintain quality. Of course, Bill C-234, labeling regulations. Now, that for me is one that you would think really ties to food price affordability and some of the regulations that are out there. Plastic food packaging, food insecurity. I guess, is there anything the government really can do or should do when it comes to tackling food price volatility and affordability for Canadians, Stuart? What would you do in this situation?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. They're in a tough spot to, what they can control is the Bill C-234 thing for sure. That one should be an easy one for them to, and it was interesting that the committee, put this forward. I guess we do know that the Liberal MPs on that committee have been supportive of that, maybe more so than others. But hey, when we add taxes to the supply chain, it's going to increase the cost at the end to the consumer. And I don't know if people really understand the impact of things like the carbon tax when it goes all the way through from the farm all the way to the grocery store. There's a lot of places in that supply chain where it's impacting. Food packaging is an interesting one too, because I'm guessing plastic is a very cheap way to package your food, and it's also a very safe way, we should point out, or it's been proven to be safe. So, what are the alternatives there? I think the report did a good job of discussing that. Hey, maybe we need to look into these before we make changes, right? Like, are there actually alternatives, and then what's the cost of that alternative? So I don't know. I mean, the industry in general, I think, is doing the best they can to make sure that food prices are as low as possible for consumers. I think it starts at the farmers and goes all the way through the chain. I don't think that's industry that's out there. I don't believe that industry is out there gouging consumers. I think they're just, everybody's through their stage of the supply chain has to make a profit for their shareholders. And, otherwise they're not going to be in business. And at the end of the day, we as consumers, we want to go to the grocery store and find food.
Again, the numbers show, Meagan, that grocers are not gouging. Yet for some reason, the House Ag Committee cannot be knocked, and the government cannot be knocked off of this issue, because we got we got the Grocery Code of Conduct. Now, John Barlow was on the show earlier this week and said, listen, a Grocery Code of Conduct has nothing to do with lowering food prices. Yet, okay, it's mentioned in this. We've also got excessive net profits. That's targeted towards the grocers. And another point is increasing grocery sector competition, which up until now has been full of empty promises. And it's, you talk to people in the grocery sector, they'll tell you it's incredibly competitive in Canada, which is one of the reasons that we can't get new entrants to come to the country, along with our only 40 million person population. So of 10 things, 3 are targeted directly at grocers. We can't seem to get knocked off of this.
Yeah, well, we're a year or so out from really true election season beginning. This is top of mind for Canadians, right? Food prices impact every voter, and liberals and conservatives alike know that this resonates at the door, and appearing as though you're trying to do something to lower food prices, notwithstanding how complicated that truly is to do, is good for politics, right? It's good policy. It's good politics to appear as though you're trying to do something, keeping, holding their feet to the fire, to try to get grocers to bend. You can't really deny the record profits that, are reported publicly. But I think, it just comes back to good politics. It would be good to see the code of conduct. There are elements in there, such as how they operate with their suppliers, right? That would be good. How much they can increase prices to their vendors, that sort of thing. That would be helpful. But yeah, there's been a lot of hits on grocers lately, but I don't see it stopping anytime soon.
Well, and again, if you're trying to attract new entrants to the market, you got to think, as far as under the microscope the grocers have actually been, and so the unfair scrutiny, it's not really exactly attracting new entrants. Like, why would we want to go to that market?
Just think of how much property they hold as well. The real estate aspect of grocers has been under the microscope too. How they control complete developments and prevent or make it challenging for other businesses, such as like Dollaramas that also sell grocery items, to be in those developments and that property that they hold. So it's a large, complex, and competitive landscape that does make it challenging to fix or tweak in any way. But the competition investigation will be interesting.
Okay, last break, I promise. It's kind of a fact. We'll take the break and we'll be back with our final segment of the Real Ag Issues panel. Stuart, Person, MMP, Meagan Murdoch, Hill and Knowlton, and Kelvin Heppner, and myself, Shaun Haney, with Real Agriculture. We're right back right after this.
How's your seed quality? What should you treat with? What about herbicide carryover and environmental concerns? Spring is here, and you've got a lot of things to think about in regards to your pulse crop. The Pulse School on Real Agriculture has information and advice for all these questions and more to help you navigate this season. Brought to you by BASF. Pulse School episodes are available at pulseschool.com, realagriculture.com, or as a podcast on your favorite streaming service. Download the latest episode today.
I'm Lindsay Smith from RealAgriculture.com. Join me Monday nights for The Agronomists, a 1-hour live and interactive show broadcast across YouTube, Facebook, and X. Monday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, I host expert agronomists from all over the country to give you answers to some of the toughest agronomic questions. Join us live or catch the replay Tuesday morning. That's The Agronomist with me, Lindsay Smith, Monday nights live at 8 p.m. Eastern.
And welcome back to RealAg Radio, RealAg Issues Panel. Shaun Haney, your host, joined by Kelvin Heppner of RealAgriculture, as well as Stuart Person of MMP, and Meagan Murdoch of Hill and Knowlton. Hey, Kelvin, there was announcements this week at Dairy Farmers of Canada, Lactanet, and Starbucks Canada. Now, we've heard similar kind of programs in other streams of the agricultural industry where basically if you do a certain amount, if you're an FCC customer and you do some you check some boxes on sustainability criteria, they're different in each of the programs, you can earn up to $2,000 per farm. This seems like FCC continues to. This is like the third one I can think of. There possibly is more. This is a version of sustainable lending, is it not?
It is, yeah. In some ways, it's not tied in terms of your overall mortgage and having terms, better interest rates or things there in terms of sustainability metrics being applied there. I think this is actually like the 6th or 7th one that FCC has launched, and we have covered some of the earlier ones. This one is a partnership with Starbucks, like you said, and Lactanet. And again, if you meet certain dairy producers meet certain criteria, they can qualify for this up to $2,000 payments, with $1,000 of that coming from Starbucks. So interesting to see end user companies getting involved. It is, I think, largely a token amount, and probably makes sense for farms that are already doing these things. And these companies can say that they are incentivizing these sustainability activities, but I'm not sure how much it will actually move the needle in the big picture. It will help these companies get a better understanding of the practices that farmers are already using.
What DFC should have done, Meagan, is say, you know what, we'll participate, but get rid of the almond milk. It's not really milk in the first place.
I don't know how you milk an almond, but that's probably a discussion for another panel. But yeah, as Kelvin says, it is nice to see the end user sending money back to the farm gate. But yeah, I think it would be really interesting to study or to survey farmers, maybe something you can do, Shaun, and ask them, would this $2,000 help them implement new sustainability practices? I'm not sure that it will, really. At the end of the day, it will, put a little bit of money back in their pocket for practices they've already done. But whether it encourages any new practices or farms to take new action, I doubt it. It's so small.
Yeah, I can tell you that with Cappy about a year ago, we asked producers about this, not about the $2,000, just about general programming and the amount of money that is being offered. And 46% of farmers said that payment structures on existing programs is not enough to tweak their interest. Okay, speaking of market research, Stuart, in April in the Canadian Farmer Sentiment Index, we asked some questions in collaboration with MMP about land rental agreements. And I found it interesting. And you have maybe a better handle on this from your side of the equation as an accountant, but we asked, are you planning to renew any land rental agreements this year? And 55% said yes. Does that number, that seemed high to me, but maybe I'm just missing something. What were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it does seem a little high. I mean, you would think most farmers would be into multi-year agreements. I know there are some that are year to year, but for the most part, we would see 3-year, 5-year rental agreements in place. So I don't know if it was just luck of the draw that a bunch came due this year, or if it was the spike in commodity prices that was pressuring farmers to maybe go renew early because they didn't want to feel, they didn't want their landlord feeling like they were being taken advantage of, or I'm not sure. But definitely a higher number than I would have expected on a 1-year basis.
Yeah. So what do you expect to happen to the price of your land rent? 53% said it's going to increase. So for the people that said it's going to increase, we had 82% saying somewhere between 1 and 24%. And Stuart, 18% of people said land rent was going to be going up 8 was going to be going up between 25 and 50%. That's 18% of those people said it's going up 25 to 50%.
Yeah.
That gets your attention.
I know it does. And I'm not totally surprised by that, actually, just given where we saw commodity prices in the last 3 years. And then Ritchie Brothers has done some auctions across the country on land rents, and we've seen some numbers which has given some price discovery information to landlords. And we've seen rents go, 2 or more times where they would have been otherwise. And so I'm not surprised to see that we're seeing that sizable amount of increases. The big picture here, though, is I'm concerned about what that does to cost of production. I'm concerned for producers who are maybe locking these in for 3 or 5 years at really high rates. We have no idea where the commodity markets are going. I just worry that we've got a number of producers now locked into too high a cost of production, and are they going to make any money on this land? Don't know.
Yeah, and of course, go ahead, Kelvin. Go ahead.
I was going to say, are we seeing the rental market adjust here to higher interest rates and purchasing costs on buying land, where, say, with higher interest rates now, your land payments on an annual basis might be $600 where they used to be $300, then renting maybe looks a little bit more reasonable, and if you're looking to expand.
Oh, absolutely, Kelvin, you're bang on that one. I mean, we on our farm, we always did the math, say what's the interest rate, and then look at the price you're paying per acre for land. And if your interest was going to be lower than the rent cost, then you obviously would buy that land, right? And I think in this case, it's gotten way more expensive to buy land now with interest rates up, and land prices have also gone up at the same time, right? And so, yeah, I mean, it's definitely having an impact. I still don't know if it's for certain not making sense to buy land in some areas now in terms of what your productive capacity is on your farm. But even paying a higher rent, is start to make you scratch your head as to what exactly are we doing here. But in the agriculture, one of the challenges we have is we don't always know what the markets are going to do next year or the year after. And so those who have high optimism will maybe pay a little more because they think it's going to get better. And then the other thing I would point out is, we see cost of production vary widely from farm to farm. So there are farms out there who are very good at managing their cost of production, and therefore they would be able to pay a little higher rent than some others.
Okay, we are out of time. Time flies around here every Friday afternoon on RealAg Radio. Hey, Meagan, have yourself a great weekend, okay? Enjoy some of that weather in Toronto.
I will, yes. Have a great weekend.
That is Meagan Murdoch of Hill and Knowlton. Stuart, always great to chat with you. Thank you so much.
Go Oilers.
Well, okay. He said it, not me. Everybody, the Stuart Person of MMP. It's been a great series. I've watched a lot of playoff hockey. I've watched way more playoff hockey this year than I've watched any regular season hockey. We are ripped off in the regular season, continuing with hockey.
I'm just so happy, Shaun, to hear that. I heard you. I think I heard you say you were cheering for the Oilers after the Vancouver series. So
I said they deserve to win. You mistook that, Stuart. You sort of were putting words in my mouth. Great stuff. Kelvin, have yourself a great one.
Thank you. Have a good weekend, everyone.
Okay, I love everybody's feedback. If there's anything we talked about or didn't talk about that you have a thought or question about, we'd love to hear from you. Send me an email, shaney@realagriculture.com, or you can call that RealAg feedback line, 855-776-6147. Thanks so much for getting real and getting connected with RealAg Radio. And we'll, of course, chat with you again next week. Have a great weekend, everybody. Cheers.